What's up, guys? Full-Wheeled Doctor back again, working on this X3. It's a 2018 or 19 one. We're gonna do this Evolution Powersports dump exhaust on it. Already started taking a few things off, but it's not much. This back cover here. This thing does have the Yoshimura pipe on it already. There's 5 bolts, T30 Torx head bolts you got to take off. And then these 4 bolts that hold the actual muffler on. Your muffler is probably going to look a little different than this if you got the stock one on there. So I'm going to get those pulled off, and then I'll cut the camera back on in a sec. Actually, we're going to take these 4 bolts off, and I'm going to pull those 4 springs out there, and then I will let this rear section muffler come off. So I'll cut the camera back on in a sec when I get that unbolted and show you what the next step is. I also want to show you a shot of this this kit. This is actually pretty clean. It's got that electric solenoid there, or electric valve that opens up and closes, and comes with a switch and all that. So pretty good stuff. But that's what we're going to stick on, and I'll try to show you some step-by-step on how to get it off, get it on, and what it sounds like in the end. Alright, cut the camera back on in a sec. Alright guys, I got all the bolts out of here. The exhaust still didn't really want to come off, so I went ahead and took these 4 springs off here that hold the muffler section to the catalytic converter. It's got these big springs on it. Recommend using a spring puller. I don't have one, so next best thing is a good pair of vice grips. Clamp down pretty tight on them, and you just snatch it and they'll come off. So got that off. Now I'm gonna see if I can wiggle this exhaust out of here. Looks like I may end up having to remove this bottom plate because it's just not wanting to slide out like it should. So I'm gonna remove these 4 bolts, or nuts actually, on these bottom plates. Just get this whole thing to slide out of here. If that's the case, I probably didn't even have to take these bolts out, because with these out, the whole muffler will come out. So I'm gonna pull those 4 bolts out and get this whole thing out of here. I'll cut the camera back on in a sec. Guys, I just went ahead and unbolted this bottom bracket here. I'm not sure how this is different than the factory exhaust, but that made it a whole lot easier to get off. That way, all you got to do is take these 4 bolts off and the 4 springs, and the whole muffler comes off. All right, next thing I need to do is take the clamp off of the turbo up here, and it's behind this cover. Just pull it down, and I had to move the seats forward, but there's a boot back there I have to take off, Phillips head screw. But before that, just to make it a little easier, I'm going to probably go ahead and pull this passenger seat out so I can get to the electrical connectors for this thing, and make getting that cover off a little easier. I believe these are 14mm bolts here, and I believe 17s at the back. I mean 13mm bolts here and 17s at the back. I'll pull them off and get this seat out of the way, and hopefully I can get that cover off a little easier then. Cut the camera back on in a sec. Alright guys, got the seat out. Opens it up a little bit in here. Told you wrong, these back bolts are actually 18mm instead of 17. Then you pull this top piece off. There's some little clips in the bottom. You pull it up so it lets this thing slide back, and it's not that first clamp you see, it's the second clamp that you'll need to remove to get that that breather hose off. It's just a Phillips screwdriver, or you could use a nut driver with a maybe a 8mm nut driver on it. Alright, so then this opens it up. You can get back here. There's the little turbo. The clamp we need to remove is this clamp right here. You can see the bolt there. We'll get the impact. It may looks like it might be a 7/16 or maybe a metric. So let me dig in there and see if I can figure out what that is, and I'll get it off. Alright guys, next thing, the instructions say to remove the oxygen sensor, which is in here, and it's pretty tough to get to. I'm going to see if I can leave it on there until I get it out of the bike. The plug for it is stuck to the frame, or to the back of the seat right up here. Other thing that we need to take off is there's another clamp right here. It goes to this bracket. Need to remove that clamp because that's holding the heat shield, and it looks like the exhaust to this bracket. So I'm gonna remove that clamp, and that should loosen everything up to where we can slide it off and twist it and wiggle it and maybe get it out of here. So hopefully I can do it while the oxygen sensor's on there, but if I don't, I may have to remove it once I get get it loose here. So let me see. I'll get that clamp loose and then see if I can wiggle it out of there. Guys, I had to remove this whole, well, both of these clamps. There was another clamp here as well as that one I showed you hooked to that bracket to get this bottom heat shield off, because it was hung on that bracket there. So I've got it off now. I also had to take a screwdriver and work that V-band clamp all the way off the turbo, or it wouldn't come loose either. So I'm gonna see if I can wiggle this thing out of here with all the heat shields and all that still intact, at least most of them here on the back by the motor, and hopefully I can get it to twist out of here with the oxygen sensor on and all, and not have to take all that off. So let me see what I can do. Alright guys, it's not going to come off of there with this heat shield still in place. I've got it slid forward. You can see where it's dropped down in front of that bracket. I believe what I can do is take these four 10mm bolts out and just let that heat shield fall down, and it'll give me enough room to fish this end out. You see there's only a few inches there that I got to get by. So if I take those out, actually I could probably just slide it off, and that would be the easiest thing instead of having to tear anything else off here. So let me get those 4 bolts out, and I'll slide that heat shield off, and I know it'll come out then. Yes, I was correct. Got the heat shield off, and now see if I can set this camera up here and show you what it looks like pulling this thing out. Hopefully I don't knock that off. But so with the clamps loose, the oxygen sensor just unplugged and not completely removed, you can fish this catalytic converter pipe out just like that, and get it out here on the ground to work with it to get that oxygen sensor off. And I think I'm gonna have to take this donut gasket off, because I don't think the new one came with it, and probably gonna try to reinstall this heat shield if I can get it to go back on there, because these bikes get real hot. There's not a whole lot of protection on the back side there to put that on. So hopefully I can get it. Actually, I believe it's got I believe there's some brackets on there to hold it on the new exhaust. So let me get the oxygen sensor off, and I'll get the new one laid out here, and we'll mock them up, see what we got to take off, which ones to make it work. Alright guys, here's what we got. We won't have to use this donut gasket because this pipe's actually got a flared out section on it. So I got the oxygen sensor out. I'm going to put a little bit of anti-seize on it before I stick it back on here. I'm also going to put the exhaust shield back on there. It will work. You can see they replicated the spacers here on here to make it work with the clamps and all that. So just going to go ahead and stick that on there first before I put the oxygen sensor in. Put the oxygen sensor in. Also probably going to go ahead and fish that V-band clamp, the new clamp, out and put it on there, just so it'll be a little easier once I get it on the bike. And so let me get this tightened back up, and then I'll slide it back in. It's like we're going in. It's going to be pretty easy. Guys, I ended up fishing this the exhaust back through here. I actually had to unbolt this clamp because the all this wouldn't fit through there. I'm not real sure if you need to put this back on. None of the pictures in the instructions show this being back installed, but there's some plastic intake parts there. The exhaust, or the tube for the intercooler, runs right there, and I could see where this thing could get hot. So I am going to install this back on just to be safe. So with fishing this back up in there, this actually will help hold this pipe in until we get the muffler and all that in. So I'm gonna fish this back through there, and I'll cut the camera back on in a sec. Alright guys, I got the clamp on there snugged up a little bit. Also got the heat shields on here. They're a little bit loose right now. Both of the clamps are on, but I'm going to go ahead and slide the muffler in here just so I get this pipe in the right position before I get these heat shields tightened up. So probably going to go ahead and hook the springs on here first, and then slide the muffler up on there and pull them back out with the vice grips, just like we removed them. So let me get that in there, and then I'll cut the camera back on and show you what it looks like. Alright guys, I got the muffler bolted back up on there. Got the clamps back on. Those clamps are pretty tough to get back on there. Very, very tight. Heat shield went back in just like it should. Got the hose clamps around the heat shield, and also tightened up the V clamp. Hooked the oxygen sensor back up. Now what I need to do is run the wires for the switch. We're going to put the switch in here, tie the wires into these terminals here, a ground and a switched power, and then run the wire back to the back. So let me get this switch panel popped out, and we'll get the wires laid out and figure out where we're going to run those. Alright guys, we got the wire run back. Just kind of followed these wires back around here and run out the back side. Actually followed the oxygen sensor wires. You can see the gray wire running up there, and ran down this frame rail to the plug. I don't have the back cover on there yet, but I'll stick that on in a second. And then the actual electrical part of this is very, very simple to wire it up. I tested the prongs here. This is this, pull this cover off. Tested the prongs here. The bottom one is ignition. The top one is the ground. So you just take the two ring terminals and tie those in. We're going to put the switch in this hole. It doesn't really matter which hole you put it in, but that's what we're going to do. And I'll cut the camera back on in a little bit. We'll see what this thing sounds like. I got to do a little bit of some lighting in here first, and then we'll get everything put back together, and I'll give you a little sound clip of what it's going to sound like. Also, still got to put that center cover back on, and we'll be done with that install. Alright guys, first start up. Sounds pretty cool. Alright guys, check out my other videos. I got a bunch of them on this X3. Hope y'all enjoy this. Like, subscribe. See y'all later.